secret. In a land far away, hidden from the prying eyes of the world, stood a solitary stone tower. No path led to its base, no door broke its smooth grey surface. It was a place of isolation, a fortress built of stone and secrecy. For as long as she could remember, this tower was Rapunzel's entire world. Her days were a quiet rhythm of song and solitude, spent by a single high window that offered a tantalizing glimpse of a world she could see but never touch, as dusk would paint the sky in shades of purple and orange. A faint, warm light would begin to glow from that window, a lonely star in a silent, forgotten corner of the kingdom. This was her life, a peaceful existence, she believed, a life protected from the dangers she was told lurked in the world below. Little did she know, her quiet life was about to be discovered, and her world, so small and contained, was about to expand in ways she could never have imagined. But secrets, especially those kept in lonely towers, have a way of finding the light. One day, a prince, lost while hunting, was drawn by the sound of the most beautiful singing he had ever heard. He found the tower but saw no way in. Day after day he returned, captivated by the voice, until he overheard the sorceress call out, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." He watched, hidden, as a magnificent braid of golden hair cascaded down the tower wall. The next evening, at the foot of the tower, he called out the same words, and so began their secret. Every evening, as the moon climbed the night sky, the prince came in secret. Rapunzel would lower her shimmering hair, a golden rope for her love to ascend. In the soft glow of candlelight, they would share stories, laughter, and dreams of a future together, a world beyond the stone walls that held her captive. For the first time, Rapunzel's heart was filled not with loneliness, but with a vibrant, blossoming hope. But love, when it blossoms in the shadows, often casts a long and dangerous one of its own. The sorceress, the very woman who had imprisoned Rapunzel, began to notice a change in the girl. A new light danced in her eyes, a secret smile often played upon her lips. She sang her songs with a newfound joy, a depth of emotion that hadn't been there before. The sorceress, whose heart was a knot of jealousy and possession, grew suspicious. She had raised Rapunzel as her own, jealously guarding her from the world, and the thought that someone else could hold a place in the girl's heart filled her with a cold, creeping dread. She began to watch, her presence a dark shadow lurking on the forest paths below. Her narrowed eyes missed nothing, her ears strained to catch any whisper on the wind. She felt a truth she couldn't yet see, and a storm of fury began to gather within her. The sorceress's suspicion festered, turning from a quiet worry into a consuming obsession. She needed to know the truth. One day, feigning a long journey, she hid herself in a thicket of thorns near the tower, her patience as sharp and cold as a shard of glass. She waited as the sun dipped below the horizon and the sky bled into twilight. Soon enough, she heard the familiar call of a man's voice, and her heart turned to ice as she watched her precious Rapunzel, her golden-haired captive, let down her braid for a handsome stranger. The sight of the prince climbing into the tower, the sound of their joyous greetings, was a betrayal that cut deeper than any blade. The truth, in all its devastating clarity, was laid bare before her. One day she discovered the truth, and in that single moment, any semblance of love she ever had for Rapunzel curdled into pure, unadulterated rage. The following day, the air in the tower was thick with unspoken tension. The sorceress waited until the prince was long gone, her fury simmering just beneath the surface of a terrifying calm. Rapunzel, naive and happy, was startled mid-song as the sorceress stormed into the chamber, her face a mask of thunderous rage. "You deceitful child," she shrieked, her voice echoing off the cold stone walls. "You thought you could betray me, hide your little secret from the one who raised you, who protected you." Rapunzel, her song caught in her throat, could only stare, her eyes wide with a dawning horror. The gentleness she had always known from the sorceress had vanished, replaced by a terrifying venom. It was in that moment that Rapunzel truly understood her reality. She was not a protected daughter. She was a prized possession, a bird in a gilded cage, and she had just been caught trying to fly. The sorceress's rage was a tempest, and Rapunzel was caught in its eye. "I kept you safe from the wickedness of the world." The sorceress screamed, her words lashing out like a whip. "And this is how you repay me. By giving your heart to the first stranger who comes along." In a rage, she raised her hand. Not to strike, but to inflict a wound far deeper. From the folds of her cloak, she produced a pair of cold, gleaming scissors. The candlelight caught the sharp edge of the steel, and the metallic glint seemed to extinguish the warmth in the room. Rapunzel backed away, her hands flying to her magnificent braid as if to shield it. That hair was her identity, her connection to the prince, her only means of reaching the world outside. The sight of those scissors, held with such cruel intent, was the most terrifying thing she had ever seen. The promise of violence hung heavy in the air, sharp and absolute. With a heart full of malice, the sorceress lunged forward. She grabbed the thick golden braid, a treasure she had tended to and coveted for 18 years. Rapunzel cried out, a sound of pure anguish and despair, but her struggles were useless against the sorceress's iron grip. There was a horrible, final sounder, sharp, metallic snip that sliced through the silent terror of the room. With one cruel snip, Rapunzel's hair was gone. The heavy, shimmering braid, a cascade of liquid gold that had taken a lifetime to grow, was severed. For a moment it seemed to hang in the air, a final, beautiful defiance. Then, in what felt like an agonizingly slow motion, it fell. The severed braid landed on the cold stone floor with a soft, final thud, a lifeless coil of what was once so vibrant. Rapunzel stared at it, a part of her soul lying severed on the ground, and a sob of utter devastation broke from her lips. The sorceress looked down at her handiwork, a cruel smile twisting her features. The betrayal had been punished, but the sorceress's vengeance was not yet complete. Cutting the hair was only the beginning. With the same cold fury, she grabbed Rapunzel by the arm, dragging the weeping girl from the only home she had ever known. She cast her out, not into the nearby village or a neighboring town, but into the deep, lonely wilderness. A desolate place of thorny bushes, gnarled trees, and howling winds, where survival was a daily struggle against hunger and despair. Rapunzel was left with nothing but the torn dress on her back and the broken, severed piece of her braid, which she clutched to her chest like a memory of a life that was now lost forever. As she wandered through the barren landscape, the world she had so longed to see revealed itself to be a harsh and unforgiving place. The sorceress had not just cut her hair, she had cut her off from everything, banishing her to a prison far larger and lonelier than the tower had ever been. But back in the now silent tower, the sorceress's mind spun with a new, more wicked plan. She held the shorn braid in her hands, its weight a satisfying testament to her victory. She knew the prince would return that evening, his heart full of love and anticipation, completely unaware of the tragedy that had unfolded. A malicious grin spread across her face. She would not simply turn him away. She would make him suffer the same loss, the same heartbreak that she believed Rapunzel had inflicted upon her. She planned to trick the prince when he returned. Carefully, she carried the heavy golden braid to the high window. With deliberate, cruel precision, she tied the severed end of the braid securely to the windowsill, letting the rest of it dangle down the stone wall, a golden lure in the fading light. It looked just as it always had, a perfect imitation of a welcome that was now a carefully laid trap. As evening fell, the sorceress waited in the shadows of the tower room, the shorn braid her baited hook. She held her breath, listening. Soon the prince's voice called up from below, full of love and longing. "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." The sorceress's heart pounded with cruel anticipation as he began to climb. What happened next, when the prince reached the top and came face to face not with his beloved, but with the vengeful sorceress, would be a moment of pure terror, a cliff from which his heart would fall. Meanwhile, miles away, lost in the vast, unforgiving wilderness, Rapunzel knelt as the first light of dawn touched the horizon. The cold night was over. Light touched her face, illuminating the tear tracks on her cheeks, but also a flicker of new strength in her eyes. She had lost everything, but she was alive. She was free, and her spirit, though battered, was not broken. Her story, the story of the girl from the tower, was far from over. It was just beginning. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell to join us for more tales.